Have you ever watched a television series and you realize a character you liked has totally disappeared or even morphed into someone else with no explanation? The powers that be just want you to accept their new reality and not question it. There's a term for this when someone in real life tries to do that. It's called gaslighting.
Gaslighting. When someone attempts to make a person doubt what they've seen or experienced.
You're insane, Dean.
If you're curious, the term gaslighting comes from a 1944 film called Gaslight, where a husband attempts to drive his wife insane by slowly getting her to question reality and her own sanity.
Are you trying to tell me I'm insane?
A humorous example of gaslighting is displayed in the Marx Brothers film Duck Soup. Chico, disguised as Groucho, is caught in a blatant lie, and instead of admitting his lie, he asks the accuser,
"Well, who you gonna believe, me or your own eyes?"
Today we're going to focus mostly on classic TV shows where characters have disappeared or the show pulled the old switcheroo where one well-known character morphs into another actor.
We do the old switcheroo, and everybody wins.
Why focus on classic TV programs? Because in an age where television couldn't even handle showing a toilet on screen, they often didn't know how to handle an actor leaving or, in some cases, dying. It should be a fun one. On the next, I Did Not Know That.
I did not know that.
This episode, when TV shows pull the old switcheroo. For decades now, television has created programs that depend on the viewers deeply caring about the characters that they've presented. Reality has to be suspended so that the viewer sees the actor playing that character as a real person. Both Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore have said that back in the day, many fans who approached them thought they were actually married. So television spends untold millions trying to persuade the public to love and embrace these fictional characters as if they were real. Yet, when the death of an actor or a contract dispute causes an actor who plays a beloved television character to leave, television often resorted to behavior somewhat similar to gaslighting. At times, one way they've dealt with a departing actor is to basically pretend their character never existed. Maybe that character never actually died on the show, but the writers and producers did something maybe even worse. They never acknowledge or refer to that character ever again. They pretty much try to gaslight their audience into doubting that this once vital character was ever real.
And we can make you disappear.
It's a very strange strategy because despite years of working hard at making that actor almost like a member of the family, that character is now completely erased, as if someone hit the delete button. Not only do they disappear, it is frowned upon to even acknowledge that they ever existed. A good example of this was the popular show Bonanza. If you'd been a faithful viewer back in the day, Adam Cartwright was one of three sons the program regularly focused on. He was a vital part of the show for the first 6 years. The actor who played Adam, Pernell Roberts, he really grew to hate the show and he began letting people know it. He wanted out. The network got fed up, so in the 7th year of the series, he just disappeared. There was a brief mention once about Adam going off to sea, and from there on out, that was pretty much it. Despite being the son of Ben Cartwright, he was from that point on a non-person.
Never speak of it again.
He was really never referred to or mentioned again over the last 8 years of the series. While Yeoman Janice Rand was never a central Star Trek character like Kirk or Spock, she was as recognized as Scotty, Chekhov, Uhura, and some others. There are various stories on why she was dumped 8 episodes in, but the standard line back then was since there was an undercurrent of a relationship between she and Kirk, they wanted Captain Kirk to be free to pursue different love interests on the show. So from show 9 on, she just disappeared with no explanation, and nor was she ever mentioned again.
Disappeared.
Oddly enough, she did reappear almost 2 decades later in some Star Trek films. maybe she fell into a black hole and then escaped or something. The most famous TV disappearance of all is probably the character of the oldest brother Chuck on Happy Days. This is an odd one because Chuck was first played by actor Gavin O'Herlihy. But after a year, O'Herlihy wanted out, so he was replaced by actor Randolph Roberts in the second season. At that point in the series, no one much cared or even noticed the switch. Happy Days wasn't highly rated, so hardly anybody was watching. But then, when the Fonz craze began and the writers felt that there was no need for the older brother anymore, Chucky was shipped off to college, and then he was never seen or acknowledged ever again. In fact, Howard Cunningham, the father, states in the very last show, "We've had the joy of raising 2 wonderful kids." Some claim that they can hear the distant sound of Chucky sobbing after his dad makes this declaration. Chuck's disappearance was so complete and dramatic that if a character now disappears on a show, it is called the Chuck Cunningham Syndrome. Moving on to the TV series Dennis the Menace. Dennis's crabby and tormented neighbor, George Wilson, was played by Joseph Kearns. Unfortunately, Mr. Kearns died suddenly right after shooting the 100th episode. This show actually was pretty creative with the problem. They said that Mr. Wilson had to go east to deal with some real estate. His brother John Wilson came to visit as a guest and helped take care of the house. You probably recognize this actor. He's Gale Gordon, better known as Mr. Mooney on The Lucy Show. So the next season, you still had a Mr. Wilson next door because it was explained that John Wilson had purchased the house from his brother George. One example of a program handling a departing character as well as any series could was The Andy Griffith Show. Don Knotts, who played Barney Fife, wanted to pursue a film career, so he left after season 5. In the show, it was explained he took a job as a detective in nearby Raleigh. This move allowed the character of Barney Fife to return to the series occasionally over the next few years, and it worked pretty well. There was always great excitement when Barney made a return visit to Mayberry. Barney's replacement as deputy was Warren Ferguson, played by comedian Jack Burns. Unfortunately, Ferguson's character was more irritating than lovable, and he wasn't received well. He was from the East and didn't fit in with the Mayberry crowd, and so he met the fate of so many others. He vanished after 11 episodes and was never referred to again. Let's move on to the other way TV has handled a departing actor that we mentioned earlier.
The old switcheroo.
This strategy is very risky and seldom works. Probably the most famous, or perhaps infamous, switcheroo was on the highly rated show Bewitched. The original Darren, played by Dick York for 6 seasons, had health issues. York had back problems so severe that he could no longer do the role. So, surprise, surprise, in season 7, when loyal viewers turned in to Bewitched, it was not Dick York as Darren. It was another actor, Dick Sargent. This was not only a switcheroo, but it was gaslighting because everyone pretended like it was business as usual and everything was completely normal. No explanation needed. This did not go over well. Aside from insulting the intelligence of their fans, Sargent played a different kind of Darren, one who seemed habitually crabby with no sense of humor. After the switch, the show saw a significant decline in ratings, falling from 11th to 24th place. After that, it fell out of the top 30 and finally ending up in 72nd place in its last season before it was canceled. With an unusual fantasy program like Bewitched, it seems like there would have been an obvious and easy solution to the switcheroo that could have made the transition almost seamless. Darren had often been turned into things like a mule, a werewolf, and a chimp. Since the running gag was always how much Endora disliked Durwood, as she often called him, they could have just had York's last episode have Endora change him into Dick Sargent, because she couldn't stand one more day looking at his face. Another switcheroo that occurred on the show was the nosy neighbor Gladys Kravitz, played by Alice Pierce. No one knew it, but Pierce had actually been diagnosed with terminal cancer even before the first episode, and she passed away near the end of the second season. She was replaced by Sandra Gould, and while Pierce had been excellent as Gladys, Mrs. Kravitz was a rather minor character, and Gould filled in well, and it was early on in the series' run. One of the classic shows that often pulled the old switcheroo, and didn't seem to suffer a whole lot from it, was the Batman TV series. It often had different actors portray the same villains. This happened because these characters didn't appear weekly. The actors may have taken other jobs or were not available, or they wanted more money and they didn't get it. The original Catwoman was played by Julie Newmar. She wasn't available for the Batman movie, so she was replaced by Lee Merriweather. In the last season, Julie Newmar was filming a movie, and so she was replaced yet again by Eartha Kitt. Mr. Freeze was also played by 3 actors: George Sanders, Otto Preminger, and Eli Wallach. The original Riddler, Frank Gorshin, was brilliant in the part, and he was nominated for an Emmy. When he asked for more money, he was replaced by John Astin. It was by far the worst of all the replacement villains, partly because he was so well known from the Addams Family that it came off a bit like Gomez Addams as the Riddler. The character of the Riddler never returned after Astin's one-time portrayal. One series that may have had the most replacements of a main character was Petticoat Junction. The program's central figures were Kate Bradley, her 3 beautiful daughters, and their lazy Uncle Joe, who ran a charming but rustic hotel near a railway stop. The girls were Billy Joe, Bobby Joe, and Betty Joe. The program ran for 7 years, and in that time, the character of Billy Joe was replaced an amazing 4 times. In a bit of a shocker, the first Billy Joe was Sharon Tate. But before the series began filming, the producers felt she was too inexperienced for the role and dropped her. As most probably know, she was murdered in 1969 by the Manson family. Tate was replaced with Janine Riley, who left after only 2 years to pursue a film career. Ganella Hutton then took over in the role of Billy Joe, but she contracted hepatitis, missed most of that year, and then was gone by the following season. She was replaced by Meredith McCrae, who played Billy Joe until the program's end. I think one of the reasons this didn't have a detrimental effect on the show is that all of this happened fairly early in the series. Also, every replacement was a rather similar looking blonde actress, which probably eased the transition. Bobby Joe was played by Pat Woodall early in the series, but was replaced by a similar looking Laurie Saunders. Betty Joe was the only Bradley girl who remained the same the entire series. While the show survived all those changes, one change it could not recover from was the loss of Bea Benaderet, who played Kate Bradley, the mother and the lead character. Benaderet was diagnosed with cancer, and I think the series handled it badly. Near the end of her life, when she was too sick to go on, they filmed another actress from behind and had Benaderet voice the part of Kate without showing her face. After this, Kate Bradley disappeared, and the other characters began referring to Kate as being out of town. The next season, her character, much like Adam from Bonanza, vanished with little reference or explanation.
Don't say her name.
They tried replacing her type of lead character with an aunt and then a female doctor, but the loss of Kate was too much, and the show was soon canceled. There were so many other shows where characters disappeared without explanation or had the old switcheroo pulled on them. I had to stop somewhere, but here are just a few more. Mike, the oldest son on My 3 Sons. Hannibal Hayes on Alias, Smtih and Jones. Marilyn from the Munsters. And Chris on the Partridge Family. What shows do you think of when a character disappeared or the old switcheroo was pulled? Each time this happens, there's a story behind it. Sometimes a bit funny, other times sad or tragic. Let me hear about some of your shows below. Well, that's it for this episode. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.